Good evening. This is Maestro Cotello with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite modcast. Today we have a 3v3 on Calderis Refinery. Our first player today is Dacu. I guess that's how you say this name. He is playing as the Tyrant Hive Tyrant, a very, very big Tyrant hero. He's got like four blades right there. He is a tanky melee hero. He can disrupt with one of his abilities. He can charge, he can go invulnerable. He can even shoot bioplasma, even though nobody does that with him because it's not very reliable. Next up, we got Made in England playing as the Warp Spider Exarch. The Warp Spider Exarch is a teleporting, ranged hero, very good for harassment as well as bleeding models off of infantry-based squads, and also does pretty crazy, can do some pretty crazy things in Tier 3 or even Tier 2. Next up, we got CreamySurprise playing as the Tyrant Lictor Alpha, an infiltrating Tyrant melee hero who is very, very powerful, does a lot of damage. Here looks like it might actually go down though, also very good with that flesh hook ability. Next up, we got Sataninflames playing as the Plague Champion. The Plague Champion starts off as a ranged hero. He can become a melee hero if you want him to be. He can also heal and repair. Next up, we got Pads 346, hereafter referred to simply as Pads. Pads is playing as the Grey Knight Bro Captain. The Grey Knight Bro Captain is a tanky melee hero as well, the captain of the Grey Knights who walks around in Terminator armor. He cannot be knocked down or suppressed. And then finally, we have Captain Fisher as playing as yet another Grey Knight Bro Captain. Alright, so we got 3 power armor players, including 2 Bro Captains, as well as some Tyranids and an Eldar on the other side. We have a legion of heretics right now coming out from Sataninflames. We also have triple Inquisitorial Stormtrooper builds from Captain Fisher and Pads, giving them a substantial amount of ranged DPS in Tier 1. Meanwhile, we got some heretics, but you know what? These heretics are going to have to be careful. Right now, Sataninflames is getting doubled. He has to worry about grenades. He has to worry about spore mines, which are very, very deadly against heretics. And he's also just straight up getting doubled, and there's a lot of range fire against him. He should call out the double. But it looks like Pads and Captain Fisher are actually doubling Dacu over here. Meanwhile, we got some spore mines going in, getting a detonation. Looks like they might wipe out that heretic squad, so 1 heretic squad down. We did have 3 heretic squads. Did get some grenade launchers on one of them, which should do some nice area of effect damage to the Tyranids, but he's kind of pinned in his base right here. Alright, he's going to go out and still needs to be very, very careful about these spore mines, which are actually just approaching him straight up again. He's putting his heretics in a really bad position, and they actually might just get wiped right here if we see another detonation. Spore mines are incredibly deadly against heretics, and they detonate right next to this heretic squad. They might even take out this one in retreat if the last spore mine can detonate, and it does. And all 3 heretics gone now for Sataninflames. Unfortunately for Chaos, that is definitely one of the dangers of using a heretic-heavy play against Tyranids. Just that spore mines are very, very deadly against heretics. They can usually wipe a non-AC heretic squad with 2 detonations. If they get the first detonation while the squad is in the middle of an engagement, and then if they get the second detonation, they can actually just follow the heretic squad and retreat, get a second detonation, and that will actually wipe out the entire heretic squad. So, Sataninflames right now choosing to get another squad of Chaos Space Marines, maybe deciding that getting a lot of heretics wasn't such a good idea. At some point, he will inevitably need more heretics, but he should put an aspiring champion on them and manage it so that he does not get hit by spore mines. Although at this point, I'm guessing CreamySurprise probably won't build any more spore mines, although he should if Sataninflames does get a lot more heretics. New heretics on the way for Sataninflames. Generator Bash going to go down, but the Lictor Alpha is going to tie up these units, and has already been upgraded to get the feeder tendrils, which is a very, very powerful war gear. Period. Just against anyone. Incredible damage out of this Lictor Alpha. 63.75 power melee DPS. Attacks very quickly and regains 2% of his health per strike. It's such an incredibly powerful war gear. Definitely one of the best weapon war gears in the game, period. And now we got some Tyranids just nomming on generators, and Sataninflames is a little helpless to stop it. Meanwhile, back over here, we do have a lot of Stormtrooper fire. Pad's actually now going to help out Sataninflames, providing that Stormtrooper, that wall of las from the Stormtroopers to help out with Sataninflames. does manage to kill one warrior model, which does activate Synapse Backlash. Alright, Tyranids are now getting forced off now that it's CreamySurprise who's getting doubled. Back over here, Captain Fisher does have a very, very long build, but he might lose some squads over here. Maybe not. He does have Howling Banshees chasing after now. His Purgation squad also has Interceptors, and of course his triple Inquisitorial Stormtroopers. That does give him just a lot of things he can do with such a long build, but he also has to be careful about bleeding and respecting the threat of all the melee units he's against. These Howling Banshees, double Hormigons apparently from Dacu, which can certainly be very powerful. Glass cannons, but certainly a lot of potential damage right there. Blue team now moving into the middle. Made in England, I guess, was helping out Dacu. And now he's switching lanes, maybe seeing that the double's happening over here. Stormtroopers have upgraded to have their Sergeant and are also upgrading to get the Plasma Gun. Quite curiously, they're not really in a lane against... isn't really too much heavy armor on the other side. However, they may also be upgrading just to have that Overcharge ability that allows them to do knockback. Big engagement going down. Dire Avengers need to get out of there. They were about to get in really deep trouble with all those grenades. Alright, meanwhile over here, Purgation Squad purging the Guardian Weapon Team. Guardian Weapon Team taking a lot of damage, almost loses itself. Meanwhile over here, we actually still have the double over here against CreamySurprise. I guess because CreamySurprise was just absolutely destroying Sataninflames at first. Actually, that Lictor Alpha just might go down. It's cutting it very close, and the Lictor Alpha does in fact go down. This is a huge amount of range damage right now, with an Eternal War Chaos Space Marine squad, as well as now triple Inquisitorial Stormtroopers, and they will all have plasma guns, which actually really seems unnecessary unless he really, really wants to use that overcharge ability to do a lot of knockback. I actually wonder if that could be pretty effective, having 3 different squads with overcharge to do knockback, although as far as I can tell, he has not used that ability yet, which he really should, because Howling Banshees have already gotten into his Stormtroopers. Canticle of Absolution has been activated by Pads, Bro Captain. Actually, now those Banshees need to get the hell out of there. We'll also have some Interceptors jumping in, and now actually some of those Dire Avengers are getting knocked down, and they are getting wiped consequently. So Made in England lost to 1 Dire Avenger squad, came very, very close to losing the other one. So now I think, yeah, their Pads definitely was using the overcharge ability to knock those units down. CreamySurprise, meanwhile, coming back into the middle. He lost his Tyranid Lictor Alpha. Just coming in the middle to assault. The Plague Champion now has been kitted out a little bit. He does have the Sword of Undeath as well as the Light Grenades. So Sword of Undeath will allow him to act as a melee counter against units like the Hormigons as well as the Warriors. And I'd still be a little unsure if he can take on the Lictor Alpha himself in his current phase. But luckily, the Lictor Alpha is still dead on the floor. And I even wonder if these Stormtroopers could be used to counter the Guardian Weapon Team using the Overcharge ability. Just knocking over that lead model, and then the rest do DPS. And we see the Warp Spider Exarch getting DPS or getting knocked down right there. And here we go with Purgation Squads purging the Heretics, and even gets Dacu to charge and knock over his own Hormigons. He does get the Hive Tyrant in there. Hive Tyrant does have the extended carapace to charge in. We just need Captain Fisher to split up the Stormtroopers. Oh my god, we have 6 Stormtroopers in total. Captain Fisher's completely unupgraded, while Paz generally upgraded quite a bit. I think they're only missing their mines. Alright, meanwhile, that Bro Captain is just running into a situation that he's not going to be winning. Just walking into a hail of ranged fire. And this is actually... Oh, I was going to say it's going to be really bad for Captain Fisher's Banshees, or Captain Fisher's strikes, or Stormtrooper squads, but Captain Fisher loses a Stormtrooper squad to a grenade. But the Banshees got disrupted by these by these interceptors. Now we have a bunch of Tyranid units getting suppressed, not able to go anywhere. Alright, back over here. Oh man, looks like Sataninflames is now suffering a little bit from probably some Zoanthrope fire. We have a Zoanthrope out for CreamySurprise. I think that was hitting his Chaos Space Marines. Certainly with the build he has, he's going to have a little bit of trouble with the Zoanthrope. He might want to consider getting maybe some Bloodletters or even some Raptors. Or maybe a vehicle. The red team has the double cap right now, although overall the victory points are in favor of the blue team, 377 to 287. But right now the Stormtroopers have actually been very, very dominant. These are pad Stormtroopers because they are fully upgraded. And wow, Captain Fisher actually choosing to replace his Stormtroopers. Excuse me. Alright, meanwhile over here, Chaos Space Marines now upgraded to the Mark of Zinj, going to enable them to do quite a bit of range damage, but they still have to be careful about that, about this Zoanthrope right here, and the Sataninflame still doesn't have a whole lot that he can actually use to deal with the Zoanthrope. And he's actually just going straight to Tier 3, rather than choosing to get some kind of Tier 2 squad. Did not get any Tier 2 squads whatsoever. Wraithlord now out on the field for Made in England. Eldar Walker, pretty solid, very well-rounded out of all the walkers. Does have the Shuriken Cannon, enabling it to do a decent amount of anti-infantry DPS. And it does have the 85 DPS heavy melee sword, which also does splash. And Captain Fisher says he has no AV. He's saying that they need AV. Without AV, he could switch his Purgation over to a Psy Cannon. However, he definitely has been using those Purgation, the Incinerator Flamers on those Purgation squads a lot to suppress and control the Tyranid blobs. We even now have a Inferno Cannon from Pads. He's got a Grey Knight Dreadnought with an Inferno Cannon. He's got a second Grey Knight Dreadnought out on the way just with the starting Melta. But that Inferno Cannon can definitely be... It's relatively underused, but I've seen some pretty crazy things out of it. Aspiring Champion upgrading on a Grenade Launcher Heretic squad, in fact. Maybe just to keep it safe. We're going to have, I think that's probably a Spore Mine drop, maybe, from CreamySurprise. We have Spore Mines as well as an Autarch call-in right now. That's actually proving to be pretty devastating. Maybe we'll get some Spore Mines followed in retreat. Might wipe some more. Actually, I think all of those squads are going to get out there alive, still with just their... some with just their Sergeant. We have a Grey Knight Dreadnoughts chasing after a Wraithlord. The Grey Knight Dreadnought's ultimately winning because we do have a multi-melted Dreadnought. One Grey Knight Dreadnought gets snared by this Zoanthrope here using the Focused Warp Blast. But this Wraithlord's still in a bit of trouble, I think. Getting chased down. Alright, well probably maybe this Grey Knight Dreadnought actually attacking through the cliff with that Inferno Cannon, doing some pretty wonderful things. Wonderful the Grey Knights, terrible for the Tyranids. And we have an Autarch right here who's just kind of running past, taking some damage. Yeah, and the blue team is definitely going to need AV, more than what they have now. CreamySurprise has a Venom Brood out to help with AV. And we actually have a full power farm that Sataninflames built, but the power farm has actually been decapped, so he is no longer getting that power. Alright, Tyranid Blob moving around here. Tyranid Blob, let's see, does he have... Yes, he does have the Range Synapse, which is a very powerful upgrade to increase the range damage output of all of these units, or specifically the Termagants. It would also work with Ranged Raveners if you had Ranged Raveners. Interceptors jumping in, but they're jumping into a lot of fights where they're at a little bit of risk. It's smart of them to jump in and go after that Interceptor. Interceptor doesn't die, but that does threaten it and get it off the field, which does a lot to break the Tyranid line. Meanwhile, we now have some Fire Dragons out from Made in England as a way of helping him deal with the Grey Knight Dreadnoughts, but the Grey Knight Dreadnoughts are just charging in. One Dreadnought, the multi-melted Dreadnought, just forcing melee. while the Infernal Cannon Dreadnought is actually just burning the Fire Dragons alive. Wraith Lord down. And it's not going well for Made in England. He's losing a lot of stuff on retreat as well. Venom Broods are now shooting. Venom Brood is now shooting the Grey Knight Dreadnought in the back. We have a Hell Fury Strike to scare off, a double Hell Fury Strike from both of the Grey Knight players to scare them off. The Venom Brood could nevertheless just tank that damage, actually, although the Termagant's not so much. Not looking so good right now for this Infernal Cannon Dreadnought. It's taking shots from the Venom Brood, and it has been snared by that focused Warp Blast. The snare does finally wear off, so now it is able to get out of there. And Bro Captain uses Canticle of Absolution. I don't know that there's... By himself, I don't know that there's much reason for him to use Canticle of Absolution. Now he's just fighting a bunch of Tyranids. He doesn't have an upgraded weapon, so he's actually not doing that well in here. The Bro Captain actually can get kind of mobbed when he doesn't have any upgraded weapon. And I think the Bro Captain will probably go down here. Certainly cutting it close. Yeah, he's definitely going to go down. That was not very well played. Should have either gotten an upgraded weapon or had some support. Back over here, we have had Terminators called in for Satan in Flames, but he needs to be very, very careful now with these Banshees around. He burned the teleport from the Terminators. Now his Chaos Terminators are going to unsupported. They have scared off the Banshees, but the Fire Dragons are still here. The Autarch's going to tie them up so that they can't shoot at the Fire Dragons, and that actually lets the Fire Dragons just do a lot of their damage completely uncontested. Satan Flame's going to need some support to come back out. He does have double Zinj Chaos Space Marines. And Made in England taking advantage. He's actually using the energy shield right here, but I think eventually that energy shield should run out of health, but it actually appears to not be losing health for some reason. Normally you can shoot up the energy shield. We have some more Swarm Mines called in, and we have Satan Flames pretty much just retreating. Swarm Mines still pursuing, get another detonation off, but don't actually do much with it. And these double Dreadnoughts still running around for Pads. Pads, meanwhile, has a huge amount of resources. Could call down. He's probably saving up red so that he can get a Land Raider Redeemer. No, a Land Raider Crusader. However, actually, I forget what the red cost is. I'm not actually very familiar with it. Can he already do it? Is it 300 something? I always thought it was lower than that. There is the Land Raider Redeemer. So I think he was just floating straight up. Land Raider Redeemer going to be called in. Unfortunately, this is actually still not such a good situation for Pads. I think the positioning, he can't get this Dreadnought out of there, so it's probably going to die from the Swarmlord, except for the fact that the Swarmlord actually backed off. I think if the Swarmlord could have stayed in there, finished off this Grey Knight Dreadnought. Meanwhile, the other one is still in here. Now have some Gene Stealers in here, but they're way overextended with no melee warrior support. Grenades going in. Swarmlord about to get snared by a grenade. Warspider Exarch goes down. Now we have just the Interceptors jumped in again, I guess, to try to tie up something, and all of the Eldar units retreat, pretty much leaving the Swarmlord unsupported, but there isn't really a whole lot to actually threaten the Swarmlord at the moment. The most threatening thing there is a Grey Knight Dreadnought with a Plasma Cannon, of all things, which is definitely not enough. I guess there are these Terminators with their autocannon that would actually be a bit more threatening. And they are taking shots at this Swarmlord right now. Oh my god. I don't know what Captain Fisher is doing. I was going to call him Sergeant Fisher. Captain Fisher trying to capture that point, or at least get a decap off, but it wasn't really worth it, and he lost 2 regular Interceptor models, and he probably lost a Interceptor or Justicar as well from that, which was, again, probably not worth it. But the red team, I guess they are low on VP, so he wanted to try to get a triple cap as a way to try to help him catch up. We're going to have a Tyranna formation right on top. Oh my god! I think 2 Stormtrooper squads, yeah. Captain Fisher just lost 2 Stormtrooper squads from that Tyranna formation. So that Tyranna formation hit him pretty hard. Stormtroopers are quite weak. they are at least not very durable. Certainly seeing a lot of the power of the Inquisitorial Stormtroopers in this game. Wow, grenades go in, but a complete miss. Pads, pays attention, and actually moves his Stormtroopers out of the way. We have a Fire Prism that's getting way too close. Needs to stay back and just do damage at range. Needs to keep moving back, in fact. Alright, Zinch Chaos Space Marines taking shots. Sataninflames struggling a little bit, though. Because he's relying entirely, I guess, on the Plague Champion to stop the advance of any melee units on his range damage. Back over here, we now have a Carnifex out for Dacu in addition to his Swarm Lord, so he's really rocking the super units. Captain Fisher needs to be a little bit careful. He does have some Paladins out on the field, which can certainly do a lot of damage to the Carnifex, but I think he is a little overwhelmed a bit with just how many things that Dacu has right now. And he should not just... he needs to be very, very careful with those Paladins. They're already taking a lot of damage. He needs to get some extra support over here, and he needs to get the Paladins, I think, the hell out of there. Paladins are actually now in a ton of trouble, and these Howling Banshees, they're going to chase down the Paladins, or the Paladins are going to commit to the fight, and that might even be better. They might have a better chance of beating the Howling Banshees by committing to the fight rather than trying to run away. But now he's trying to run away. He might just lose his Paladins for it. Except for the fact that we do have some Interceptors jumping in with their Justicar, knocking down the Banshees, and that saves the Paladins, but they definitely took a lot of damage from that, losing 2 out of their 3 models. Meanwhile, we got a Swarm Lord and a Carnifex trying to chase down these big-ass vehicles, double Dreadnoughts, and a Land Raider Crusader. Pads, meanwhile, can't even afford to get much else. He doesn't, well, he can afford to get more stuff, but he doesn't have much population space. I think he can maybe get another squad of Stormtroopers. Which is, in a way, not kind of good. He doesn't have a whole lot in terms of actual AV that he can use. Now he's getting overwhelmed, overrun as well. Needs some help from Captain Fisher, maybe also from Sataninflames, but I think Sataninflames is fighting his own battles over here. Might want to help out. And there is an Imperial Abyss as well, wiping out a Hormigron Brood. Wiping out a Hormigron Brood. That's pretty much it. Wiped out a Hormigron Brood, which is, well, what the Imperial Abyss does sometimes. Meanwhile, Land Raider Crusader actually very low on health at this point. Might risk going down, but we do have a Predator out for Sataninflames, but it actually has been upgraded with the Mark of Nurgle, so its AV DPS with the Mark of Nurgle is actually not that great. We do have the stats right here, 11.4 explosive DPS, so that's the AV DPS, and then it does damage over time, flame damage. And we're getting ready to unleash the Eldritch Storm, but I think most of those units are actually going to micro out of there. This forward Grey Knight Dreadnought does, however, get haywired by the Eldritch Bolts. So it is in a bit of a bad position right now, and the Carnifex is going for it. Might actually take out this Grey Knight Dreadnought. I think that will be the end of this Dreadnought right here. And it's not even, still not even moving. So one Dreadnought, and we had a sync kill. So a sync kill on that Grey Knight Dreadnought. Oh, Blight Grenades going in, I think wiping one of the Termagant Broods from CreamySurprise. CreamySurprise, I think, just not really noticing it with this Plague Champion right here. Interesting upgrade configuration. Sword of Undeath, Blight Grenades, and the Armor of Pestilence. Meanwhile, Paladins are in here chasing down the Carnifex, and I think they might finish off the Carnifex, or they're going to die trying. And actually, they're not going to finish off the Carnifex, and they really are dying trying. They do teleport out of there. I think it might have been better for them to teleport behind the Land Raider Crusader, or just teleport near that support rather than just teleporting to a place where they were by themselves. Double Predators for Sataninflames. This one's still vanilla, so still going to be doing some substantial AV DPS. Might want to switch to the Mark of Horn or the Mark of Zinch on this one to get some better AV DPS, while also still having quite a bit of anti-infantry DPS. But the problem now is that he actually has Sataninflames has no repair support for his predators. He's getting his vanilla predator in a really bad situation. I think it actually has been snared by the focused warp blast, and now it's actually going to go down from a shot from the fire prism, and there it goes. Here we go with another Tyrant formation. One spot in the middle, but this Tyrant formation actually seems to be missing quite a few things. Might actually it takes out one of Pad's Stormtrooper squads with that bottom spire, which is actually in a way okay for Pads. That clears some of his population to get either a squad of Paladins, Terminators, or whatever he wants, really. He also needs some repairs for this Grey Knight Dreadnought. Fire Prism still taking shots at range, just kind of whittling down, doing some attrition damage. Oh no, but here come the Paladins. Paladins, of course, cannot be knocked down, so that might be the end of this Fire Prism, although the Paladins actually choosing not to pursue because of the fact that these Gene Stealers are right here, and they might even take out the Paladins unless they go inside the Land Raider Crusader, which is probably what they should do. They're actually choosing not to do it. Yet another Tyrant formation. And a lot of things are dying. Another Paladin went down, but also some Banshees are going down as well. Paladins, I think they need to get inside the Land Raider Crusader, which is, I believe, what they did, or they just died. They either died or they, I think those were Captain Fisher's, yeah. So they went inside the Land Raider Crusader. Meanwhile, we got some Paladins out for Pads. He also has a Vindicare Assassin, a sniper unit for the Grey Knights that also functions as their long-range AV with turbo penetrator rounds. Here we go with another Eldritch Storm. Might take out this Nurgle Predator right here. Coming very, very close. Unfortunately, I think that what's not so good about that Eldritch Storm is that it was done at a time when they could not follow up. I mean, that Eldritch Storm can be so powerful at a time when you can follow up. Swarmlord actually goes down, though. Eldritch Storm can be so powerful when you can actually follow it up, because all of those Eldritch Bolts have basically function as haywire grenades. They snare and disable the weapons of a vehicle. And this Carnifex is in trouble. It needs to try to maybe charge out of there if it can, because it is being chased down by double Paladins. And there is the charge, and it unfortunately hits the cliff, so it's not in such a good situation right there. We need these Termagants to try to use Crippling Poison to stop the Paladins, and I don't think is the Carnifex going to get out of there alive? No, it does not. Alright, back over here. Nurgle Predator still alive at level 2, but, oh man, I think it was getting close with the Venom Brood close by. Probably could have finished off the Nurgle Predator, but now we also have a Lictor that might even try to finish off this Nurgle Predator. If it doesn't kill itself, if it doesn't get killed in the middle of all of this, it was getting knocked down by that overcharge from the Inquisitorial Stormtroopers. There was definitely someone trying to say that these Stormtroopers do not scale particularly well, but right now I think we're seeing them scale very, very well. With how effective they can be in Tier 1, the fact that then they level, and then the way their repair support as well as their abilities synergize with those powerful Grey Knight vehicles. Wow, VPs are really close. Haven't even been paying attention to that. 62 to 69. 2-to-1 cap in favor of the blue team. The blue team doesn't even have their natural. They actually have the red team's natural. Vindicare Assassin needs to be very, very careful. He cannot afford to any of these units get too close to him. A very, very lucky Synapse backlash from those Warrior Broods, kind of halting their approach, but I think that was a close call for the Vindicare Assassin. Vindicare Assassin really going for that capture point, but I think if he stays there, he's going to get mobbed by these Gene Stealers. He's in a lot of trouble. I don't think he should stay there. Meanwhile, while they can't even capture their natural VP here, they're actually Made in England is calling a GG, and I think that is going to be a GG in favor of the red team. Meanwhile, we got double Lictors. One's probably the Lictor Alpha, and one's just a regular Lictor. And the Vindicare Assassin has a funny thing where he walks backwards, I think, in a really funny way. Let's just get a look at that Vindicare Assassin right here. Vindicare Assassin. Alright. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.